welcome to Combat Thoughts. I'm Robbie.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Alex.
We're going to take a deeper look at the culture and philosophy behind martial arts. So, if you're happy to jump into it, just how are you feeling for Polaris?
Yeah, I'm feeling good, ready to go. I'm excited. It should have been July 17th, so we're a little overdue, postponed, because obviously the restrictions here in the UK, but I'm raring to go, just waiting for next weekend.
Sick. I mean, has that interfered with your prep at all, the change, or?
No, if anything, it's just giving me an extra 3 weeks just to continue training hard, keep adding to the to my repertoire of moves. And then we had the whole shake-up of opponents. We had 4 Americans pull out and
Yes,
4 new Americans added in. So now we had to change the game plan slightly because obviously there's some very different competitors in there. So if anything, it's just giving us a little bit more time to consider what we're going to do.
Oh, so do you prepare specifically for the opponents then?
I essentially, I'll have a game plan in mind for each person.
Ah,
But it's not overly specific. It's not. I don't game plan to the point where if something doesn't happen in the match, then everything's over in my mind. And oh no, this particular position didn't happen. But I will spend a little bit more time working on my close guard passing because Richie Martinez and Gio Martinez are in the division. So I try to get a little bit more comfortable within the rubber guard. Or I'm working a lot on my wrestling because JT's the captain, but now maybe the wrestling isn't as an important component for the matches. So then it can be a little bit more relaxed and maybe I can come back to pulling guard or to jump into submissions. So it's more of a brief outline than anything else. I try to study the person and see what they're good at and what mistakes they make. So I try to get sort of matches where they're winning and see what repeats itself. So, okay, he used this same position, this same technique to score a sweep or scored a submission from these 2 positions. Repeats itself in 4 matches. Okay, that's more than likely going to be an issue. And then I also look for matches where those people lose and what went wrong. So how that person shut down the game and how I can replicate that style or how my style merges with the one that won. So yeah, we'll see how all that pans out in the day.
has that worked well for you in the past, doing it like that? Because the reason I ask is everyone else I've spoken to has said there's too many of them. I kind of have an idea, but I'm just going to go out there and do my game.
Yeah, I think a lot of jiu-jitsu guys are very relaxed, and it's very much I don't want to focus on their game because it's going to take away from my game, and I want 100% focus on what I'm good at. But I think to some extent it's slightly a cop-out in the idea that when you're watching people's footage, you get a lot of anxiety, you get nerves, and I do too. But because you'll watch a fight and you're like, oh no, oh that guy's got a really really good heel hook, damn, and then you put yourself off so much that you focus on what the guy's good at, as opposed to me trying to calculate what mistakes he's making. So I recognize what he's good at, but then I know, okay. So for instance, one of the best examples I have was I had a match with Craig Jones at the 2016 Nogi Worlds. I was watching all of his footage, and at the time, this was before he transitioned to the dark arts and started leglocking everybody. At the time, he had a very good triangle choke from bottom Z guard.
Yes.
And he'd whiz at the top side, control the wrist on the other. And I know if you whiz at me, I've got a strong underhook. So as soon as you underhook me, I'm going to knee slice straight through the guard. And within 30 seconds, he's pulled to Z guard. He's overhooked me on my right side. That's my strong pass inside. So straight through. I score 3 points at the start of the match. I get my hand raised. So I could have watched all of Craig's videos and seen triangling everybody and psyched myself out, and then also being on the sort of victim list of what people that have been triangle choked. But instead, I'm trying to intelligently think, how do I counter his go-to moves? And how does that merge into my game? And if I didn't have a strong pass on that side, then maybe I'd say, okay, I need to completely avoid that position and don't allow it to happen in the first place. But because it fits very well in with my passing style, we can let it happen. And then it's a battle of who's best in that position. And I'm going to hazard a guess that Craig didn't watch any of my fights before we competed, so he doesn't know that I'm good at passing to that side. So I have a little bit of a mental advantage in terms of when we get to that position, it's almost like I'm saying go. You see, I get that head start of, okay, we're there. He's got his overhook. I have my underhook. I'm going to slide straight through the legs and score that pass. And that was the deciding factor in the match. I won on points. Actually, he ended up getting he knee reached me at the end, and he got disqualified.
Well, we won't worry about that bit.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was the catalyst to Craig Jones's leglock run.
We're all part of the bigger picture.
Yeah, exactly. You're welcome, guys.
All right. Cheers, Brad. Well, I've got to wonder then, does that, without getting too distracted from Polaris, does that take a lot of time investment? Because it sounds like it takes a hell of a lot of time investment, like watching, especially with the number of competitors you're coming up against. You've got to watch a lot of tape, and you've got to pick out exactly what you want to do against each one of them.
Yeah. Again, it's not like a set thing.
Yeah.
In terms of, I'm going to let Gio Martinez get to rubber guard and wrap me all the way up, and now I'm going to try and use my defense. It's just understanding it's the brief outlines of top and bottom against this person. I don't want this guy on top of me. Okay. What passes does he use from top position? Body locks. Okay. Try to sort of keep distance as much as possible. You have that initial fight at the start where I'm constantly going to be palming his face and put my hand in his throat so he can't even connect his hands. Or he connects his hands. Okay, maybe I work into my batter inches off of his body lock. I make those evaluations as opposed to like watching so much that I'm looking for a specific thing. But yeah, it's time consuming, but all we have is time. So we got an extension on the competition. There's an extra 3 weeks added. So the hardest part at this point is just getting good footage. There's a lot of people, especially the new guys that have been added in, that have a few highlights on YouTube or matches from 2015, but nothing too current, which is obviously people's games change a lot in 5 years. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm just you're just trying to look for the most recent footage, but yeah.
Of course, yeah. And from what you've seen, is there anyone you either particularly want to match up against, or maybe who will give you a particular trouble?
Obviously, I think everybody's heart was set on JT. Unfortunately, he had to pull out. I'd love to compete with Roberto Jimenez. I think he's an absolute stud, and the intensity that he goes at. One of the biggest things is not always just the styles clash, is sometimes just the intensity that I look for in an opponent. I think some of my best matches on Polaris were in the previous squads against Tommy Langacker and Espen Mathisen. And I think that's because we're both hunting the other person constantly. So we're looking to get those good positions, and that's where you have a really good exchange of good technique. And I think you're going to see that between myself and Roberto Jimenez. Hopefully we get the same thing with everybody else. There's a lot of forward action, a lot of fighting. I'd like to see some wrestling exchanges with Mikey Perez and PJ Barch. We'll see if I can get those matches too. I'd love to have a matchup with Boogeyman Richie Martinez. Any of the heavyweights, I'm happy with. The lightweights, you never get a good run when you're the heavyweight versus the lightweight. It's one of those lose-lose situations. If you beat
of course.
Them, oh, you got 20 kilos on him, you just squashed him. And if you lose, then it's like, oh, you lost to a man 20 kilos lighter. So if I could stick with the heavyweights, I'll be happy.
That's fair. Do you think there's because obviously the rule set gives more points for beating you if they're a smaller guy. Do you think there's a bit of a target on your back as one of the bigger guys?
I don't think so. To be honest, I don't think. I mean, obviously everybody's hunting for those points. I think I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm pretty difficult to submit. I've not really, out of all the squads that I've been in, I've not been put in a bad position yet. Hopefully we keep that going. So yeah, and it's a 5-minute match. It's very difficult to submit a lot of people in 5 minutes. So I do a lot of training on my defenses. I'm not just working good position. I'm practicing from bottom mount. I'm practicing from the people with hooks in on my back, bottom side control, from leg lock entanglements. So I'm fairly comfortable with my escapes. I just have to make sure my reaction time and the speed is there on the day.
That's fair. And obviously not your first team event. Where do your thoughts on Team Jiu-Jitsu lie now? A lot of people are seeing it as sort of like the future of exciting Jiu-Jitsu, and some people I think it's a bit of a gimmick.
Yeah, I mean, it's considerably more exciting than just your regular super fights, because now there's a lot more on the line. There's that national pride. I think it's going to be completely different next weekend with a crowd. I think the crowd this is going to be the first true squads event.
Of course, yeah.
So, because obviously we had the first two in the pandemic, and they were exciting. It was very back and forth, and you have some really good matches. Because from my perspective, it's brilliant because you get so many matches with so many high level guys. If I were just competing on Polaris in a super fight, I get 1 15-minute match against one of these guys, compared to I could fight 4 or 6 or all 8 of them if things go well. So for me, from my perspective, it's brilliant in terms of exposure to other athletes and getting as much map time with high-level competitors as I can. For a spectator's perspective, the matches are 5 minutes long. You don't have to have such an attention span. Both people are gunning for it because you're trying to win for your team. You're trying to add points on. You get those elements of one team goes down 1-0. Can we score it back? Okay, it's 1-1. It goes into extra time, halftime. It starts to get exciting when there's something on the line. Instead of just 2 competitors fighting, and then one of them realizing that it's not going to go their way, so he clams up, defends everything, and just tries to make it go to a decision, and so go all the way. Because it's very difficult to try to submit somebody when they've decided not to fight back anymore.
Yes, of course. I mean, I guess that's where points have an advantage over submission only, but hopefully that won't be an issue here. I mean, I think a lot of people come to Polaris with the idea that it is a show and they're here to bring some action. It's not just, the world's tournaments, which maybe people could be excused for looking more just for the win rather than a performance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's another benefit to this squads event, is you're not necessarily taking it as seriously, because obviously it's not only one match that I can have. If I go out and I don't perform as well in one of my fights, I'm probably going to have three more throughout the day, or a number of more matches. So you can go out and take a little bit more risk because you're going to be back out there again. So I think that they're onto something with this. I think it's going to be very exciting how it feels in front of a crowd, especially a hometown crowd. It's almost a benefit that JT is not in the tournament anymore, because I think everybody was coming to support him instead.
Well, lucky. I'm a bit conscious of time because we only got 5 minutes. So I did have two bits I wanted to touch on before we close it off. Firstly, obviously, very relevant to the moment, Olympics going on. The topic of Jiu-Jitsu in the Olympics comes up from time to time. What are your thoughts on it? Do you sit in the exposure, more people seeing it, great for growth of the sport camp, or is it more on the look at judo kind of camp?
My perspective is more of, do you see any private judo schools around the country? And you don't see many. A lot of them are funded by the government, which means the moment a sport becomes an Olympic sport, it has to become accessible to the public. So you now need to offer lessons for £3 in a leisure center down the road. So it starts to kill the private jiu-jitsu sector of having an academy and charging £100 a month and having 300, 400 members, and the standard black belt that's no longer a competitor can comfortably make a living because of his successful academy. However, you don't see many judo or wrestling coaches that are making big money off of a wrestling or judo school. A lot of wrestling coaches have to merge with an MMA gym, or coaches they teach, but then they also have other jobs. So I think if we put jiu-jitsu into the Olympics, it benefits that 3% of high-level competitor, that now I can represent my country, I can be considered an Olympian, and there's a lot that comes along with that. So maybe I benefit a higher amount because of the sponsorships or the, I don't know, prize money maybe, but just the clout of being an Olympian. Whereas the other 97% is a purple belt that just wants to open his gym because there's no jiu-jitsu in his area, now becomes very difficult for him to actually make a living. So in my eyes, we'll stick to private jiu-jitsu and try and win the IBJJF Worlds.
I have always been pro the private side, but not for that reason. That's not one I'd consider. It's an interesting perspective. And then I guess final question, World's opening up again. Any more Brad ventures coming soon?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, obviously, it all depends on the restrictions. I've not been double jabbed yet. I've got my first jab. The second one is scheduled in. So hopefully after Polaris, I can get that. But to be honest, all of my weekends are booked up with either seminars or weddings. I have so many friends and family that should have been married through the pandemic that I literally have a full 2 months of weekends, either seminars, different places, or weddings put into place. But that just gives the country a little bit more time to ease the restrictions again and make it a little bit more comfortable for our travel. And then hopefully by the end of the year, maybe Brad venture to Poland for the ADCC trials. Who knows? Or we're also considering the World Championships, IBJJF Worlds. I'll put the pajamas back on. Getting a bit fed up of no gi at this point. Put the pajamas back on, and maybe we can get to the World Championships later in December. So hopefully there's a Brad venture to Poland and a Brad venture to California by the end of the year. But I'm not keeping my hopes up.
Cracking. Well, we'll remain optimistic. Brad, probably not got any time for any more questions, but thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Best of luck at Polaris, and yeah, hopefully we see you getting to the ADCC trials and everything, and hopefully the world actually continues opening up.
Yeah. Fingers crossed, man. Thank you very much.
Cheers, man. Thanks. Bye.